emotive storytelling that B2B marketers can learn.
Stories are all about structure, talking back to your core brand values. B2B is more rational. Attention really is the currency in both the worlds, right? It's indeed a superpower moving from B2C to B2B.
Consumer insight shaped a B2B story.
B2C brands who are on a very different journey. They're very gung-ho about exports as a program, launch a 360-degree campaign across 5 cities and in a very vernacular way. So it's really about bringing AI and the human element together. I was able to get a service appointment without talking to a human, which is
Welcome to the B2B Marketing Podcast, presented by B2B World Summit and powered by Brand Story Digital. In this episode, we'll explore humanizing B2B brands and storytelling lessons from B2C. I'm your host, Soumya Mooney. My guest today is someone who has straddled both the worlds of B2B and B2C very effectively, Richa Khera. She is the Global Social Media Director at Schneider Electric. Before that, she shaped brand stories at Amazon and KFC. Richa, I'm so glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me here, Soumya. Super excited to be here. Very interesting topic. So a little more about myself. I started my career at consumer internet. Then I went on to spend a couple of years in retail, omni-channel retail with KFC. I've done a stint with Amazon in e-commerce, and now I am in the very exciting world of B2B with Schneider Electric. So I currently head social media at Schneider. I also help shape our executives' brand voices on LinkedIn. I also work on a bunch of other brand initiatives at Schneider at the moment.
Wonderful. So, Richa, you've worked in consumer brands that have to earn attention every single day. How have you made that transition from B2C and B2B, and have you faced any challenges in doing that?
So, I'll probably start off by saying that it's indeed a superpower moving from B2C to B2B because it just gives you so much more perspective. You also see things a little more differently, a little more human, if I may call it that. So at the same time, I would say there are similarities and there are some differences as well. Attention really is the currency in both the worlds, right? Whether it is a consumer buying a sneaker, a dress, or it is somebody who's making a buying decision for enterprise software, right? So it all starts with attention. At the same time, there are some differences as well. So consumer buying is a lot more emotional. It's a little more impulsive. It's also lifestyle driven in a lot of cases, right? On the other hand, B2B is more rational. It's more calculated. It's measured, and it's a little more, it's subjective. It's also a little more complex, right? Now, this brings me to the point that how do you go from one to another? So it's almost like making a little bit of a mindset shift from entertaining audiences and informing audiences to more education driving, creating long-term relationships from smaller social engagements that we typically do in B2C. It's also about making or rather influencing larger buying groups versus the individual decision making that happens in the world of B2C. So it's almost like saying while virality can get you sales overnight, B2B is a little more complex where a webinar might be nurturing a lead for months before something actually happens, right? So to just sum it up, I'd say that while attention is the currency, but it's a marathon of trust that B2B building really has to do.
So it's really the long-term relationship and the trust that you build of educating your buyer. So can you share an example from either Schneider or Amazon that you worked where a consumer insight shaped a B2B story for you?
Right. In fact, I'll probably talk in more detail on how consumer insight actually powered our entire marketing strategy at Amazon Global Selling, which I was part of. So, Global Selling is actually the exports program of Amazon. It's different from the Amazon domestic program, which is far more, widely known by people. So the exports program actually started way back in 2015, and I joined the program a few years later than that. So we actually did a full research with Nielsen to actually uncover the truth around what is it that the seller really wants, right? So we actually segmented by cohorts. We said, okay, let's go ask these offline buyers who actually want to export. Let's also go ask offline exporters who want to come to a different channel, which is online. Let's also go to these sellers who actually sell domestically on Amazon.in and can potentially be the ones who can come into our program as well. And also to think of D2C brands who are on a very different journey. They're very gung-ho about exports as a program, and they are digitally native, which means they're agile, their supply chains are far more agile versus traditional manufacturers. So we actually went to the depth of understanding the needs of each of these different cohorts to really power what we wanted to do. So at the same time, while we were doing it, there were a couple of interesting findings. We figured that the awareness of the program was low, which wasn't a surprise. But what was surprising was that a lot of sellers actually thought of this not very differently from the domestic program. Now, that was a bit of a revelation, which means we really needed to create a distinctive identity for this program. The third thing which came out was that sellers told us that, what's the compliance, what kind of paperwork is needed, how do I forecast my demand in those, marketplaces in the US, in the UK. I'm familiar with Indian waters, but what do I do over there? So there were some very practical things which came out. Now, out of it, we actually culled down a lot of, action items, and we actually launched a separate accelerator program for D2C brands called Propel, with some partners like Sequoia, Peak 15 Now, Fireside Ventures in really the first year of its launch. So Propel is almost the Y Combinator of Amazon Global Selling. So that's one thing we did. Then in addition to this, we actually doubled down on our education driving initiatives. So right from starting a lot of on-ground events to doubling down on webinars to actually creating a lot of content on the blog, we also realized that the time spent on blogs was actually sometimes 3x that of the web pages, right? So clearly there was a lot of intent and a lot of intention of understanding, this space by the sellers. So we eventually got to a stage where we did launch a 360-degree campaign across 5 cities and in a very vernacular way, because these sellers were probably sitting in different parts. Say, think of Gujarat, where we have a lot of jewelry exporters, Tirupur, which has a lot of textile manufacturers, right? Yeah. So a variety of sellers, different kinds of needs, and this is how we were able to power all of it through the power of insight.
Wonderful. And coming to a consumer campaign, I felt that Amazon's Deliver with Love campaign that they run primarily for festive season in India is a very powerful emotive storytelling technique. And and during festivals, as you know, there is a heightened sense of emotion, right, around shared joy, love, laughter, gratitude. So I felt that one of the examples of very effective emotive storytelling that B2B marketers can learn from B2C is really about the narrative and controlling something which is real and sharing some real stories. And that's what we do in B2B marketing, right? We share customer success stories, speak the voice of the customer in our success stories, while the journey of B2B buying and selling is fairly long and complex, as you mentioned. I think when you do emotive storytelling, nothing sells like success. So wonderful. I think that's an excellent example that you shared. Now, you run social media for Schneider Electric globally. So, and you work inside a global organizations. So stories need to scale across regions and business units. So how do you craft a narrative that is both inherently human and enterprise ready?
We see it literally every single day, right? Enterprise story can run the risk sometimes of feeling very corporate, very jargon-led, very complex sometimes, and human stories can feel very, very informal sometimes, right? Which do not work for enterprise clients. Similarly, enterprise stories are all about structure, talking back to your core brand values, and at the same time they have to be highly scalable, right? Because it has to make sense in multiple markets, it also has to make sense across multiple product lines, it also has to make sense for complex products, right, that B2B brands typically have. So really at the heart of it is making the two worlds come together. And great stories do have a heartbeat, right? They don't work on just headlines.
Correct. And I love what you said, empathy meets expertise. So one playbook with a master storyline with local adapters and data to validate local resonance. So wonderful. Now, if you look at brands breaking through today, right? What separates the ones that really do well as opposed to ones which are very generic? So how do you identify the purple cow, for instance?
So it's a super noisy market out there, right? There's so much bombardment of messages, consumers are bombarded not just with brands, but just so much happening around. I think the real nice, good, solid brands do 5 things very well. One, they're consistent and consistent over a period of time. Secondly, they're very clear about what they do and what they stand for. The third is distinctiveness. The fourth is relevance, and the fifth, of course, is authenticity, right? So you bring all of these 5 together, and it really makes for a solid formula for a fantastic brand building case. Now, maybe let's take the example of Salesforce, right? Salesforce really is the OG B2B brand that everybody talks about, right? It's a little probably, over talked about, but it still obviously is a very, very solid use case of how they build the brand. Now, if you look at it, it's not just built on product leadership, it's actually built around a solid narrative, a cultural momentum that they've built around the category and not just the brand, right? So let's look at it this way. They really own the CRM category, right? You think of CRM and it's literally the first thing that comes to everybody's mind, right? I've also been on the other side of this implementation in retail, omni-channel retail, where the decision was to be made on a CRM software, and it was unanimous. The decision was just unanimous across procurement, across marketing, across finance, across sales, operations. So that's what great brands do, right? They own categories, and that's what Salesforce has done phenomenally well. The second thing they do really well is obviously leverage the founder brand. Mark Benioff, really obviously a very, very powerful storyteller. He's opinionated, he's bold, he really puts the brand out there, right? The third one is Dreamforce, the as big event, right? It's a fantastic brand asset they've built over years. It's attended by lakhs of people, and it almost makes Salesforce like a lifestyle brand, right? And that is so uncommon in B2B. In addition to this, of course, they have very good brand codes, right? The white and blue, the very distinctive blue, which I have to say looks very different from the blue that a lot of banks use, a lot of the financial brands use, right? So the white and blue category codes to see, that's amazing. Then the mascots, right? Right from Astro to Einstein, again, very distinctive, all of it together. And obviously a great deal of thought leadership, a lot of visibility that they're able to have a full drumbeat of it year on year, occasion on occasion. So that's what they do really well. Another great brand that comes to my mind is Slack. No doubt Salesforce probably acquired it. But Slack again does a fantastic job of very, very clear positioning of who they are, right? It just makes work simple. It makes collaboration simple, and they stand for it. You look at their brand codes, right? The hash and the octa the hash and the pound that they have, and the 4 brand colors that they have, the plum and the yellow and the blue and the green together. It just makes it look very non-corporate, right? You should go ahead and read their comments on LinkedIn. The way they respond back to people queries also. It's witty, it's sharp, it's full of banter, and it's also very, very fun to take a read at. So that's another great example of how a lot of the corporate brands can also become a lot more human.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the color codes, right? So color therapy in branding is a legit science. So for aspiring marketers or folks who want to get into B2B marketing, I highly recommend you read about chromotherapy. That's how brand identities are built, and quite agree that the emotive storytelling comes together when you're able to execute, keeping the human at the center or the core of it.
Yeah.
Now, coming to something which everybody's talking about, AI, right? So, storytelling in AI first future. So, as AI reshapes every touch point of the customer buying journey, how can brand storytelling become authentic? They can be human and more accountable, according to you.
Yeah, I think with AI, obviously everything is sounding very similar.
Yeah.
A little
Sameness.
robotic. Yeah, sameness. Yeah, that's the word, right? Sameness, a little bit robotic, a little bit too polished, and less authentic, right? Brand storytelling really then becomes the anchor of what great brands do, right? So it's really about three things. One, keeping it real. Secondly, keeping it human with real voices, real people. And third is about transparency. If there is indeed a use of AI in some pockets, it must be openly called out. Having said that, super important to have a lot of balances and checks in place, because how do you check for bias? How do you check for facts?
Yep.
How do you ensure that there are no non-ethical, communication, etc. going around, right?
So the algorithmic biases need
Exactly. So it's
we need
really
to have some guardrails around.
guardrails have to be there. So it's really about bringing AI and the human element together, juxtaposing it together. I'll give a small example of a consumer durable. So for example, if I want to book, say, a service appointment for something which broke down, I can very quickly go to WhatsApp. I recently did 2 days back, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. I was able to get a service appointment without talking to a human, which is great. But at the same time, my first purchase was another product, and then I had upgraded it. Now they sensed that something is a little off in this transaction, because what I wanted wasn't sort of coming in the options, right? But the good thing is that there was a human who called me within the next 30 minutes to say, hey, your appointment is booked, but we do realize there's a little more complexity here, so we are here to help you. So I do think it's a bit of a both the worlds coming together.
Yeah, so AI can perhaps help you with research, with perhaps helping you with it can act as an assistant to make your job faster perhaps, but you need the human in the loop, especially with regards to storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Because that's such a crucial part of marketing, and that basically is the signal for everything to follow for marketing.
Yeah.
So now we're coming to the fun segment of this podcast. This is called the lightning round. So whatever comes to your mind, the first thought.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Go for it.
Okay. Your favorite B2C brand for storytelling?
It has to be between Swiggy or Zomato in the Indian context.
Okay, and why?
So if you look at it, absolutely fun brands to witness. It's amazing to see how across touch points they remain very, very consistent, regardless of where you see them, right? So that's really the beauty of powerful
And
brands.
very quirky sense of humor in their storytelling, right? Amazing. One word that best describes your leadership style?
I'd call it pace setting, which is leading by example, working with a lot of speed and having enough milestones in between.
Wonderful. A habit that keeps your execution razor sharp?
I would say it's the clarity of both the input metric and the output metrics.
Wow. So a social media director who talks metrics. Your go-to source for creative inspiration?
Okay, there's a very interesting platform called Behance. It's an Adobe platform where a lot of designers, creative folks actually put up their work. It's definitely worth taking a look at.
Yes, and I'd highly recommend our B2B marketers to look at it. Richa, your journey from KFC to Amazon to Schneider Electric shows very beautifully how B2B brands can be built or are being built when you think like a retailer, act like a storyteller, and build consistency over a global platform. So thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you. That is such a wonderful analogy, Soumya. Absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to hear more insights from our B2B marketers, then you must join us on March 20th at the B2B World Summit and Awards 2026 at Namma Bengaluru. This is Soumya Moni signing off from this episode. Until next time, keep telling marketing stories that matter.